Chances are you've come across this story on social media more than once, no matter where you are in the world.
For the last 24 hours, one man has united and divided the country in equal measure. Brian Mwenda Njagi.
Brian Mwenda.
Brian Mwenda.
Brian Mwenda Njagi.
Fake lawyer Brian Mwenda.
Back in 2023, a Kenyan man named Brian Mwenda went viral after reports claimed that he was a fake lawyer who had won 26 court cases. The story spread like wildfire. People called him a genius, others defended him, and some women were even crushing on him. Before long, Brian Mwenda wasn't just a man accused of pretending to be a lawyer. He became an internet celebrity and a worldwide sensation. But here is where things get even more interesting. The famous story that made him go viral wasn't completely true. So what actually happened? How did Brian Mwenda manage to get into the legal system in the first place and fool everybody? And why did so many people actually support him after he was exposed as an alleged criminal? Let's get into it. In October 2023, social media in Kenya was going crazy over one story. A man called Brian Mwenda Njagi was accused of pretending to be a lawyer, and the story sounded almost impossible. People were wondering how this man had gone into courtrooms, stood in front of judges and magistrates, represented clients, and somehow managed to get away with it. But what came next is what turned his story into a national sensation. Reports claimed he had handled 26 court cases, and not only that, they said he had won all of them. The number was everywhere. It was in the news, it was all over social media, and before long, 26 wins became the most talked about part of his story. Some people even compared him to Mike Ross from the TV show Suits.
So this guy, let's just call him Suits.
But there was a problem. The then LSK president Eric Theuri dismissed the claim that Mwenda had won 26 cases, calling it false, misleading, and without any factual basis. He condemned Brian's actions, describing him as a criminal, and warned the public against portraying him as a hero.
Brian Mwenda should not be celebrated as a hero. He is a criminal, so we would want to reiterate that Mr. Brian Mwenda Njagi is not a hero. He is someone who has exposed institutions to fraud, like the Law Society.
Theory also questioned the political support Brian was receiving, saying it was so unusual that it even made him wonder whether Brian could be a government secret agent.
This is the first time that this character is receiving support from politicians and from institutions such as court, which is leaving us with a question. Who exactly is this Brian Mwenda? Is he a secret agent?
So how did a man with no legal training end up looking on paper like a real lawyer? You see, there was already a real lawyer named Brian Mwenda Ntwiga. Brian Mwenda Ntwiga was a real advocate. The Law Society of Kenya had an account for him on its online advocates portal. Then sometime in September 2023, the real Brian Mwenda Ntwiga tried to log into his account, and he couldn't. Something had changed. The email connected to his account was no longer his, so he contacted the Law Society of Kenya, and that's where investigations really began. According to LSK, someone had taken control of the account. The profile picture and the workplace information had been changed, and an application for a practicing certificate had been made using the account. And that person, according to LSK, was Brian Mwenda Njagi. And once LSK realized what happened, the matter was reported to the authorities. This is also where the internet started taking the story into a completely different direction. Instead of focusing on the fact that he was accused of pretending to be a lawyer, people started rooting for him. Before long, the man accused of faking his way into the legal system had somehow become the hero of the story. And then something even stranger happened. Brian Mwenda became famous. Not infamous, but famous. His face was everywhere. People wanted interviews, people wanted pictures with him, people wanted to be seen with him. And people online started treating him like a celebrity. As the story kept growing, former Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko publicly supported Mwenda.
The Constitution of Kenya is very clear. The Bill of Rights in this country, every accused person is presumed innocent until proven guilty by a court of law. Brian is still innocent.
And Mwenda himself appeared in a video posted on Sonko's social media.
Good evening, everyone. I do not have much to say. I'd like to convey my gratitude to the people that are supporting me, that are praying for me. And
he also said he believed he would eventually prove his innocence. So now think about what was happening. The Law Society of Kenya was calling for action against a man said was impersonating an advocate. The authorities were looking into him, but online, there were people defending him. There were politicians supporting him. There were people asking for him to be allowed to study law. The internet basically turned a criminal case into entertainment, and that brings us to a bigger question. A lot of people weren't supporting the idea of pretending to be a lawyer. They were supporting the story. They saw a young man who, according to the viral version, had entered a profession without the required qualifications and somehow managed to convince everyone he belonged there. That looked like intelligence. To others, it looked like someone beating a system that they already didn't trust. And that's where things get uncomfortable. Because if a person breaks the rules and we like the way they did it, do we still call it wrong? If the person is confident, funny, attractive, or clever, do we judge them differently? Will people have reacted the same way if Brian wasn't young and charismatic? Will the internet have called him a genius if the story wasn't entertaining? These are uncomfortable questions, because sometimes society doesn't judge the action, it judges the person who did it. A person can do something wrong and still become popular, because people like their personality. And that's exactly what happened with this story. And this is where another viral myth needs to be cleared up. You may have seen people saying that after he was arrested, Brian Mwenda represented himself in court and won his own case. That story is also not something we should present as a fact. There wasn't some movie-style moment where the fake lawyer stood up and successfully defended himself and walked away free. The real story is much more complicated. It's about identity theft, weaknesses in the systems, social media, and it's also about society and its morals. People didn't just ask whether what he allegedly did was wrong, or try to hold him accountable for his pathetic actions. So I'll leave you with this. If someone breaks the rules, but we like the way they did it, does that change how wrong it is? Because maybe Brian Mwenda didn't just expose weaknesses in the legal system. Maybe he exposed something about us too. Our hate for the system has blinded us to a point where we are willing to support criminals and their crimes.